So I need a hatchet or a saw, but I don't have one. I've got a knife. And something to understand is this. Just about everything you can do with a knife, you can do with the hatchet, and just about everything you can do with the hatchet, you can do with the saw, and just about everything you can do with a saw, you can do with a knife. Now, having said that, it's a lot easier to cut a tree down with a hatchet than a knife, but there's a skill set that you can use in conjunction with your knife to chop a tree down. You either stab it in and rock it back and forth and do this in a circle until you can push your tree over, or you cut small wedges and split the tree that way, or you just keep cutting chunks like a beaver. It just takes forever, so it's not ideal. Conversely, you can skin a fish with the hatchet. For obvious reasons, it's just very hard to do that as well. So if I've just got a knife and I want to do what really should be a saw or a hatchet job, I add a baton stick. A batoning stick is just something to hit the back of the knife. Now use wood, don't use rocks. You're gonna jack up the back of your knife. So let's talk about how to make a batoning stick. I've got some seep willow here. It's fairly thick and robust. I mean, a big batoning stick hits hard, but it also wears your arm out. A small batoning stick doesn't hit as hard, but it doesn't wear your arm out. Somewhere between here and here is good. And it also depends on, are you hitting your knife with oak or are you hitting your knife with balsa? You know, the density, the wood types change. The good thing is we're not gonna run out of wood anytime soon. So grab what you have, use it, see what works, and kind of experiment in your own area. I know this seep willow will work great. So let me show you how to cut the seep willow first with a knife like this. We'll turn it into a batoning stick, and then I can go back and gather some more hearthboard material from the sagebrush by using the batoning stick to cut through instead of trying to cut around it on the ground. So the first thing that I need to do is I want to bend it. Let's talk about why. A stick is a bunch of fibers compressed together. It's got a hard chunk in the middle that's brittle. It's got bendy stuff on the outside that has a lot of strength, followed by cambium layer, which is super strong, followed by bark, which is worthless. So what you want to do is cut through that cambium layer on the outside and the fibers in the middle to get to the crunchy part, and then it breaks. The way to cut through fibers is to bend them and put them under pressure. So if you just try to cut fibers naturally, they just kind of bend over. But if you put them under tension, the first row's cut, the second row's cut, the third row's cut, and they come apart easier. So understanding that scientific principle, if I bend this stick over and I just rock my knife on it, it's gonna go bum, 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 bum. It's gonna come apart really easily. So this isn't exactly the pressure that I want, but it's the pressure I got. So it's stabbing me. So I'll put this under pressure, and there's some bend right here, some bend right there. I'm gonna try to cut it right here. And I'm just gonna rock that across the blade there. You see how the pressure's pushing it up? And I just continue to rock, and that crunchy part you heard was the hard inner part I was talking about. So I have the bark, the cambium layer, those fibrous layers, and that crunchy part. You heard the crunchy part in the middle, which is the heartwood break. I pushed through those layers. Now that it's busted here, I need to cut this piece and this piece along these ridge lines. And then I can cut the center ridge I created, and it's basically off. Left, right, center until it comes off. Now here a lot of people will spin and twist and start pulling it off. You don't need to do that. Just cut it sideways across right here. It comes right off, all right? I only need this chunk. The rest of this is gonna burn or get turned into other tools later. So I'm gonna rose cut it right here, and that'll give me my baton stick. And while I'm here, I might as well grab the material for my bow, since we've already got the right material with us. Okay. All I'm doing here is cutting through that cambium layer and getting into the fibrous layer right before the crunchy heartwood. Because if I can cut all that, then I can get to the point where all I have to do is break it. Probably deep enough. And that's why we call it a rose cut. Cut the cambium layer of the outer bark.
Focus on it, get your hand in there. Okay.
And that's why we call it the rose cut. Cut the cambium layer on the outer bark, cut the fibrous layer, and break the crunchy center. And that's how I make a batoning stick. I can clean it up and cut a pretty handle, or I can just hit it, which is what I'm gonna do for now. While I'm here, I'm gonna grab one more stick to the side because I need a bow. Then I'll have a batoning stick and a bow. We can go make our bow drill. That was a good shot. Let's talk about what you want for a bow for your bow drill. Cut something green and cut something that's about armpit to fingertip length, plus or minus hand length. Doesn't have to be exact. If it's a little longer, you're gonna get a longer range of motion with your bow. If it's a little shorter, it's gonna be a little harder. Right there, if I cut this piece off, is about a perfect bow. Now notice that I didn't go looking for the perfect round shape. Nature doesn't grow anything perfectly straight for the most part, with few exceptions. It doesn't grow very much of anything the shape of a bow, but it grows a lot of stuff just crooked from straight. So if you can find something that's mostly straight, grab it like this and your spindle's running on the inside, that's curved enough for a bow. Then clean this up. I'm gonna take the tip off here, rose cut it there, strip it, and we've got a bow for our bow drill. Now once you cut this deep, you can use the knife to rotate it around in your hand, because a lot of these brush up here will get caught, and just rotate and rotate, and it will help you to kind of turn it around in your hand when you're trying to do this rose cut. And then if the fibers hang up, you just got to get your blade in there, pops them right apart. So now I've got a bow that's about armpit to fingertip length. I personally will use bows half that length because they're easier to carry and use for multiple days. But I've been doing this for a very long time. So if you're starting this out as a beginner, make the longer bow so that you can have more rotations per stroke than a shorter bow. All right, let's get out of here and go make some stuff. All right, so I've got my knife, I've got some sagebrush, don't have an axe or a saw, which would be ideal. Essentially what I'm gonna use to cut this is, normally if I could put it on my shoulder and put the knife here and baton it, that's the way to go. But since this is on the ground, I'm just gonna have to cross at an angle and baton through it this way. And all I'm gonna do, I don't cut straight down, I cut it at an angle, just like with that rose cut, so that it can cut up into it. Okay, and I'm also gonna wanna cut it right here. And this is similar to the way that you cut a tree down. Okay, you don't cut, I'm gonna clear this out to kind of show you if that works. But when you're cutting a tree, you cut here and then you cut above again a little higher, and it keeps pulling those pieces out. You cut that ridge, okay? And then cut, and again, you don't need to cut this out, but I'm gonna do it to show you how you catch the angles. So there's a ridge line here and a ridge line here. I'm gonna wanna hit it like that. Okay. Look at that. Oh, that came out. So I can roll this over and cut it that way and this way. If I'm just pushing through, I'm not gonna go very far, very fast. But when I have weight and momentum slamming into the back of this, it'll jolt into it pretty easily. So if I turn this over this way and then catch it on the backside, I can almost cut that whole limb off just from the momentum of the baton stick. And it cuts big chunks out. So this is ugly, but what I needed was this piece right here. So I'm gonna take this chunk with me back to my camp, and I'm gonna clean it up into a 2x4 that we can use, or I should say a square piece, that we can use to make a hearthboard out of. See if I can break this last piece. No, it's gotta be cut some more. Just get that done before I go. It smells like seep willow for some reason. Beautiful. That's what I need.